Hey, everybody, welcome to the Dream Big podcast. And my favorite thing to do is to have favorite people on board. And so, Christine Caine, who's kind of a household word for many of you, there might be 4 or 5 of you that haven't heard her before. Welcome to Earth. But she's just a fun, just like she could light up the grid in Chicago if we could connect her to it. But she's also has this other side that's very contemplative and kind and thought, a deep thought filled ideas. And so I want to introduce you to both today. She's got a new book coming out, Don't Look Back, Getting Unstuck and Moving Forward with Passion and Purpose. So what a great time to have a chat with Christine. Hey, Chris, welcome to the podcast.
I'm so fired up to be here with you. It's actually just so great to get on and see you. I'm like, it's awesome.
I think oxygen fires you up. You're just so engaged, and we've had some years together and some shared experiences. And one of my favorite ones was you and Nick out at the Oaks, and we got you guys on horses, and we were going to round up the cattle. And so, kind of like city slickers. I don't know if I ever told you that I had our barn hand get a bunch of hay out and let the cows see it. Right about the time I said, when we lift our lassos up in the air, I want you to let the cows see the hay. So we were feeding that a little bit because the cows are running towards the hay, and we really thought we were herding them.
It was fun, though. I mean, I love the whole.
Wasn't that fun?
It was a fun experience, and for my kids.
Hey, give for people that have only a glancing exposure to you along the way. What's it feel like to be you these days? I mean, just a little bit of who are you? And then maybe just like that, not like what do you do, but who you are.
Well, it is. Well, I mean, I'm loving life. I turned 57 this year, and I've never loved life more. And it just kind of gets better, like a fine wine, gets better with age, to be honest.
Come on.
And my kids are 21 and 17. We got 2 girls. So, I am loving it. I have loved their teenage years, and I'm even loving them getting older. So all the hard years that Nick and I put in, it's worth it, because, we're in the repeat. Like Catherine was just in London studying abroad for a year, and we've got a home again now before she goes back to school in Malibu. But it's a delight. So we're in a beautiful season. Like, I'm an older mum, so my friends are like grandparents to children my kids' age.
Yes,
I kind of got to learn from them, so it made parenting a lot easier because they'd already done their kids. They got grandkids my kids' age, and so I thought, okay, everything they told me they wish they had done different or hadn't done or done, I got to do, because it's like I gleaned from all their wisdom. So I feel like we've had a great run. I mean, a beautiful season there, and we're doing a lot. The world's opened back up. And so Nick and I basically, here we are midway through the year. We've just been doing laps of the globe. We've spent most of our year, and we'll continue to spend most of the rest of 2023 out of America. And just, we have 19 A21 offices in 15 countries. So I've had just a ball being in all these countries and being with all our people and just having a ball.
I was thinking about that, the title of your book, Don't Look Back. And there's so many great books that you've written. But I know you learn a lot by actually seeing the trail of breadcrumbs, like how God has shown up in different places in your life. So you're not saying don't learn from those experiences, but to say maybe not to be arrested by those. I was at your daughter's alma mater a couple of days ago, Friday. And in the Firestone, and was saying a couple things there. And I was thinking that was actually the location of the best, worst day of my life when I dropped off my son, because I realized this is our youngest, and it was the end of something beautiful. Some people think empty nest. And then Sweet Maria Goff started talking about a bigger nest. And it caused me to reflect back on how difficult that was to drop them off, because it was a mile marker in my life. Yet at the same time, it was a great opportunity both then and now to reflect back on how good God has been. Like I think Deuteronomy 6 and then Deuteronomy 11 say the same thing. When you're walking by the way, think about what God's done. And when you get up in the morning, you lie down, tie it in your forehead, put it on your wrist. So tell us about the premise of this book, Don't Look Back. Like what kinds of things would you tell to people who are listening about looking back and looking forward?
Yeah, I love that whole question. I mean, it's the whole book's built on one verse in Luke 17:32, where Jesus, while he's talking about like the end of the world and, Noah and the flood and all the crazy that's happening, I'm thinking about the crazy in our world. And then he says, like, remember Lot's wife, just 3 words, second shortest verse in the Bible. And I'm like, in the midst of this discussion about the end of the world as we know it, he goes, remember Lot's wife. Now, Bob, I've been doing chicks ministry for a lot of years. Heard a lot of messages about chicks, preached a lot of messages about chicks, but of all of them, not Lot's wife, you kind of go like, just not her. So it made me kind of look, and really at the end of the day, what is it that we know about her? That she was told not to look back when everything was burning down. And she looked back, the Bible says in Genesis 19, and she turned into a pillar of salt. And I got a lot of empathy and sympathy for her, because why wouldn't she look back? Like your whole world is back there and, your house is burning down. But she kind of got calcified and stuck in a moment. She should have only been passing through. And I feel like the last 7 years have been brutal for a lot of people, the last 3 really hard. And I have heard, as I've been going around the world nonstop, people going to me, Chris, I just wish things would go back to normal. Chris, I could just, if things would just go back to normal, whatever that means for people. And I know what it means in some ways is things have been so disrupted. Things have changed so much. The world as I knew it, I don't know. And the challenge can be if we look back with longing, and that really is the inference with Lot's wife. She wanted to go back. There's a difference with looking back. I always think the memorial stones when Jesus, when the Lord told Joshua, get some memorial stones before you go into the promised land. But he didn't tell him, build a monument and stay there. It's like, remember the faithfulness of God, remember the goodness of God. And remembering the goodness of God is really different to fixating on everything in your past, good and bad. And I think where we're at a point right now is we could fall into fixating rather than remembering, and we could stop losing focus of fixing our eyes on Jesus and the future, because the promise is still ahead of us. The purpose of God is still ahead of us. And I feel like I just needed to remind people that if all the promises of God are in Christ Jesus, yes and amen, I know the world has changed. I know people have gone through a lot of disappointment and discouragement and pain and loss and suffering, and I'm not dismissing or diminishing that. But I am saying that maybe it's time. If Jesus is like, remember Lot's wife, I just feel like yelling to everyone, okay, now could be a moment to remember Lot's wife. Let's fix he's still with us. The promise is still with us. I think at 57, I'm looking at my family, A21, Propel. I've never been, the only person I know more excited than me, Bob, is you. At this age, I'm like, let's be future focused. Without minimizing the past, but not fixating on the past.
Yeah, I'm thinking when you talk about things burning down, this place that we had that actually did burn down. Bad day for us, worst day for Lloyd's of London. Right. But this idea that we each encounter setbacks, but a setback doesn't need to be the campsite, right? Yeah. So sometimes we make this place that we camp out in this thing, or with longing, we're not fully present today because we're so distracted about what's either going on around us or behind us. And I really like the premise of this book to just say, what's this bright future? Like Jesus is always pointing forward. He was saying, even to Peter when he blew it, like he was saying, like, I see who you're turning into. You're going to be a rock. Say that at a time where he's feeling like a wimp. That he says, I see who you're becoming. I don't see you as who you were.
No, exactly. And it's future focused. So even when, after the resurrection, when in Mark's gospel, where it talks about the angel said to the women that had come to the tomb, go tell the disciples and Peter, Jesus will meet him in Galilee. So, because he would have thought, I've blown it, I'm disqualified, there's no chance. So she's like, he's making sure, no. But he's also going, he's got to move forward where everyone else is moving forward. So you come out, I mean, imagine the guilt and shame. Man, he's busted, he's denied Christ. Jesus has seen him, looked at him. He's feeling like full of shame, like a loser, like he's done the biggest failure in his life. And yet it's like, okay, I'm going to meet you ahead in Galilee, where I'm meeting everybody else. That's where I'm going to be. I'm not going to be back in that mistake of your past. I'm going to be there in the future. And I think so many of us, me included, who hasn't blown it? Who hasn't made a mistake? Who hasn't failed? Who hasn't, and we could get so stuck in there rather than understanding that Jesus beckons us forward. I mean, there is redemption, there is forgiveness, there is grace. And nobody has blown it too much to be exempt from the purpose of God for their life. And I feel there's a whole chapter in there trying to remind people, listen, you on your best bad day are not good enough or strong enough to out-sin the love or the grace or the mercy of God. Like, you just can't do it. So I want people to look forward.
Yeah, I think too, thinking about the assumptions people make about your life and mine, and living with anticipation and whimsy would be one of the assumptions. I know one of the interests that you've had over the last couple of years is being really fit and climbing tall mountains and hitting the peaks. And so when you come to mine, which is often, I just wonder, I assume you're climbing some other mountain, either metaphorically or actually. For me, I think the assumptions that have been made about me is that I'm always happy and that everything's going great, and that the next caper is just right around the corner. And the fact is, I'm not always happy. Everything doesn't always go great. And sometimes I'm like, what do I do? And so what I want to do is have the real version of a step forward, not the caricature of the sum of what everybody assumes about you. And then because my life has been a lot of travel, at 64, I'm trying to stay a little closer to home. So I'm just saying no to some neat opportunities, but I want to stay like filled with whimsy and wonder. I've got a great caper. We've been going up to San Quentin for the last decade or so. I teach a class up there. And so we're up there again tomorrow morning, and there's a guitar manufacturer that's giving us just a boatload of guitars. And we're going to all walk on to Southwest Airlines carrying these guitars. And the warden is letting the inmates have the guitars. And there's going to be a guitar class, and they're going to make some beautiful music. These are people that have actually created a lot of harm and disruption. But just because I'm just thinking of the generosity of somebody that in an unlikely, they don't want anybody to know it's about them, but they just want to be secretly incredible. I love that. One of the things that will get us out of the past is an anticipation for the future. I think of it as whimsy, but wonder, but like very purposeful. It isn't just toilet paper in somebody's house, but to just say like, will this move the needle in somebody's life? Speak to that in your life. You're a person that lives with a ton of anticipation, looking forward, but what do people not know about your life? I'm not saying like the deep, dark secret. I'm just saying like the assumption they make about Christine Caine that actually isn't true. Like the one about Bob Goff, the balloon guy. I'm like, sometimes I feel like, wow, I'm like a penny waiting for change right now.
I think in the same way, people think, well, look, you've just got a personality that is just sort of optimistic and up, and you just, when I say full of faith, I am, but that it just is this thing that comes naturally. But, here's the thing, Bob, faith is predicated on trust more than understanding. And trust someone like me is not an easy thing. And that's the whole thing. Like, it's not that I wake up every day and go, God, I just so trust you. And let's go, let's go help the people in Ukraine. Let's go help the Roma community in Bulgaria. I mean, we do all of that. But I have to consciously, if people, and I'm very open always about this, that for me, the biggest battlefield is always in my mind. I mean, I have to make a decision every day. My natural default would be more fear, doubt, and negativity than it would faith, adventure, and trust. So there is a and I think I wrote about this once very openly. I mean, I had, coming into 2017, 2018, just a couple of back-to-back, just things that happened. One really blindsided me. One was just like I made a mistake at work, and it's just like, it just really was brutal in terms of the ramifications of that. And I didn't think I could come back. Like I just could not. There's nothing in me. And I remember once Nick was watching this video, how he relaxes is he loves to watch videos on the Navy SEALs. So he was watching this video on like Hell Week and the Navy SEALs and San Diego, your whole world, like this deal. And I walked in and there's this scene. I didn't know that Hell Week is all about trying to get the guys to ring the bell, to give up, tap out, break you down mentally. Okay, so I'm learning all this and he's watching it, he's into it. The guys are jumping out of the helicopter down there at San Diego. They had to swim to shore and do whatever they were going to do. And as they came out of the helicopter, I started crying and I thought, this probably sums me up more than people realize. And Nick goes, what's wrong? And I said, the deal is, I've always said, like, we're the Navy SEALs in the church, we're on the front line fighting trafficking, empowering women, doing the deal. It's like I came out of the helicopter and I said to Nick, I feel like I'm in the water and I know I can swim to shore. I got the muscle memory. I've got the fear. I can do this thing. And I could probably do the assignment. And I'm bawling. And I just went, but for the first time, I don't know if I want to. I've always had I don't know if I can. Like I've never thought I'm like smart enough or gifted enough to do what I'm doing. Like I know the grace of God for that. The want to, and I've got to say, in the last 7 years since that happened, 6 years probably, I've had to make pretty much a daily decision to want to.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend this morning about some of the metaphors that we use are oftentimes, kind of combat related, battlefields and all that, which is fine. That's a lot of that in the Old Testament. But I think in terms of a rescue plan rather than a battle plan. So if you had a rescue plan for somebody, you're trying to get the Chilean coal miners out of there, that there'd be some logistics and you'd actually want to set some stuff up in advance. So you didn't start out by saying, like, where's the bandages? So I could think maybe for all of us, when we think about getting unstuck and moving forward, to just say, what if we come up with a rescue plan for ourselves? God's rescue plan for us was Jesus. Like our rescue plan for ourselves and the people that we love, what are the things that we would want to prepare in advance? Maybe some habits, some routines, some practices. You and I both enjoy writing some things. A rescue plan for me with some of the ways that I've been spread thin on things is go a little bit deeper with fewer people. So enter like camp and just get a couple people around a fire pit and just spend some time talking. The other versions are terrific too. They're just terrific for somebody else. So for each person listening, I'd like you to think about, like, what's your rescue plan for yourself? Just knowing what you know about the things that you've gone through, looking forward to what God has promised. What is the way? I'm not saying live in fear. I'm just saying get prepared for what is in front of you, what lies next around the corner. When you fly into Mogadishu, you have to have two things. You have to give them your blood type in advance because they got to have it, because if there's a problem, you're not going to find it. And the second thing, you have to have a proof of life question. So you literally, if you get nabbed, you have to tell them, like, so this is, I'll tell you mine. It's probably not the smartest idea, but I don't think any bad guys are listening. But I'm so not a sports guy. So mine is San Diego Padres, because somebody would know if I said anything about sports, I would have been kidnapped, because I have no interest at all in sports. So the idea of just be prepared and to say, what are the things I'm going to do, knowing that there's been some difficulties behind, not obsessing on them, but knowing there's some difficulties in front. This is going to be my rescue plan I'm going to have for myself, not living in fear, but living a prepared life. So give us some of your rescue plan. What comes to mind is a really great practice for you to pass on to the people listening, to like carve a new groove in their brain, to start thinking about how I might rescue myself from either a weakness or prepare myself for a big challenge. What comes to mind, Chris?
I love all that. And I think, a lot of that stuff changes as I've gotten older. And since I had that sort of experience, a few years ago, I've done a little bit of even what you're saying, fewer, deeper. My partnership with Wheaton and having cohorts of women go through and get, training and development. Our Propel Ecclesia, I still do large events, but I've got a lot more women in groups of 12 that we are, doing life together and digging deeper and and I find a lot of that stuff just replenishes me, being known by a few people in lots of great ways. And because my kids are at such an awesome stage, so I'm sort of through they're little and you got to do it all in. Loads of time, like we were just yesterday sitting down planning summer. I mean, things that we just wouldn't do, like large chunks of summer. What are we all going to do together? What are we going to do that's going to keep us going so that when I come back in, I'm going through a lot of that. So I'm finding times of find the things that replenish me and the things that even at my age and stage help me to want to stay in it, and stay in it with passion and stay in it with purpose. And the climbing the mountains, that's like no joke. And already I've got the Tetons plan. What I'm going to,
you do.
I'm going to do mountains in Italy, in Slovenia, in Morocco. I mean, we were planning them, and I'm like, they're 14,000 footers and 17,000, and I'm like, look at the smile on my face. And I know there's a ministry around that, but I'm telling you, I'm basing all that around the mountains. I'm so pumped.
Yeah. So knowing some of the things that lie ahead of us, like what can we do? And it's along the way, if your head's on a swivel, that you'll see these opportunities. There's a great verse for a couple of you to look at, 2 Peter 1:3. It says, God has already given us everything that we need to lead beautiful, godly lives. Sometimes we think we need to add this or this or this or this. If you really believed, I've already got it. And what he's given us is each other, right? I've got you in my life, Chris. I know if I was in a tight spot, if I was looking for some direction, man, I would be ringing your number. Find some other people in your life. So I want you to not just agree with some of the things that you've heard Chris say, but instead to say, so what is my action? Because I can't find one time in the scriptures that Jesus asked anybody to agree with him. He said, either do it or don't, but don't placate yourself by saying, you know what, she's got a great point there. Say no. So what will that activate in you? And I'm not saying we need to come up with about more military metaphors. Just come up with a rescue plan. To say what I'm going to do. If you climb one of those hills, do you carry one of those little GPS things with you? You can press a button.
Yes.
I rolled an ankle. I did. When I'm going to Canada, 10,000 square miles away from anybody, I carry one of those. That's my plan. It's not a complicated plan. I get shipwrecked, I press the button. So what I'd like to do is to come up with a plan, both for your faith and your family, for things around you. If you're wondering what plan for my work, John 6, when the disciples said, what's our job? And he says, your work is to believe in the one God sent. And so what if you say, my plan is belief? And I know it sounds like such a Sunday school answer, but come up with a rescue plan. Just say, I'm going to surround myself with some of the people in my life, maybe listening to this podcast as part of it, but then go say, okay, so what am I going to do with it now? How am I going to activate that in my life? Well, Chris, thank you so much. Don't look back, getting unstuck and moving forward with passion and purpose. My plan is to surround myself with people and then true words from voices I trust. And Chris, yours is a voice I trust.
Thanks,
and so
Bob.
thank you for being that in my life.
Thank you. Very mutual feeling, let me tell you. Thanks, man.
If somebody wants to get a hold of you, how will they reach you?
KristenCaine.com, all the things. Caine, yeah.
Thanks a million for the time. Love to you and Nick and the girls, and I'm just itching to be back in the same place with you real soon.
Me too. Thanks, Bob. Bless you.
All right, you guys. You've been listening to the Dream Big podcast. And again, don't just agree with this stuff. Just say it's Galatians 5:6. The only thing that matters is your faith expressed in love.